Or just hit record on that thing.
What is this thing?
Pretty early over there for you.
Oh no, not really. No, 7:30. No. I've been up
Oh,
since 6. So no, it's just the wind is blowing. Man, you can't believe it. Northeasterly wind, which is normal for a change. We are so delighted that there's some normal winds because last year in harvest time the wind came from the wrong direction and it stayed cold and wet and misery. And at least now this is a wind that dries off the crops and get everything ready to harvest.
yeah, okay. What are you harvesting, and has it been a good season for you guys?
Um, I just talked to a guy yesterday who is a planter manufacturer here in WA, Horseplow, John Ryan. He said they forecast it might be one of the better seasons in a very long time.
Oh, no.
Um, there's a few small pockets. It's kind of weird to explain that. It's in the middle of it's surrounded by brilliant crops, and then there's this little pockets where there's almost nothing.
Really?
Yeah, and I mean we don't have mountains here, Nick, so you can't blame it on wind that ricochet off the mountain and push the weather different direction. It's flat. Everything is flat. That's why I don't get it. I don't understand why a pocket is missing out on rain. It's kind of weird to be honest. So
Would it just be would it just be a luck thing? Would it be nah, that can't be right, can it? It really comes down to that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't understand how it works, Nick. I mean, if you look at WA in general, I mean, we have down south close to Albany, we have a little mountain range. It's not really mountains, but they call it mountains.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you can argue down there that on the one side is more rain than on the other side. But up here where we are, it's flat ass. We've got a little plateau. If you come off from Perth, there's a little plateau. I reckon South Australia is the same. From Adelaide, there's a plateau, and then all the flats behind that. It's the same here. We've got a little plateau with a lot of vegetation on it, mainly trees, and then beyond that is it's just flat.
Right.
And there's nothing that should stop the rain from moving in and be equal everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
But for some un, for some reason, there's some little pockets that's missing out, and like every year, it's like
Mhm.
most years, it's just missing out.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so I can't quite explain it to be honest. You talk to the farmers out there, they just go, "Nah, that's just the way it is. Always been like this."
Right.
Yeah,
Who knows? Yeah, you want to get to the bottom of it, but sometimes
yeah,
can't figure these things out. That's the tough and risky part of farming, isn't it?
yeah, yes, yes.
Um, I'll just explain for people listening, or maybe we'll get a bit of a summary of who you are and all that. But you and I came together. We've had a chat on the phone before, which was amazing, and why I would love to chat to you more and just and record it to let people know what's going on, because it seems like you're a biological farmer rather than a chemical farmer.
Yeah.
But the way that we came together was through a mutual friend of mine, Nick Hillman, who is a regenerative agriculture consultant in Texas. And he and I went to university together 23 years ago. I think it is now. No, not quite that long, but over 20 years ago, which is just kind of crazy. But
Yeah.
you have to talk to Yanni. Um, but what I'm trying to achieve really through this conversation, because I'm trying to educate people a lot about glyphosate, and people are getting really upset about glyphosate, and there's a lot of anger there, which is understandable, but we've also got to have a lot of sympathy for our farmers. So I think this will be partly educating consumers as well as to the as to where farming is at currently, and just how risky it is for the farmer, and how much we rely on them. They're on the front line, so we can't approach this topic with anger. But maybe do you want to just kick off with giving us a little bit of your background and how you've been involved in farming and your education, and how you like to farm and all that sort of stuff. But just yeah.
Yeah, okay, now, Nick. I was born in 1969, so I'm not 100 years old. Not yet.
You look young.
If you listen to my story, there's some of it sounds like I must be close to 100. But yeah, born on a farm, southwestern districts of South Africa. So that's a very small pocket just east of Cape Town. Where we were farming at that stage, it was quite a dry area. But anyway, so we lived there until I was about 11, and then there was a huge flooding, and we lost a lot of topsoil where we were farming was gone. And then Dad sold the farm, and we shifted closer to the coast with a total different farming approach and different things we were farming with. So I went to school there for 1 year. That was year 8. And then the next year I went to ag school, which is very different in South Africa compared to here. It's not so practical like here, where that's more academical school. So I was 4 years in that school, finished my school career there, then joined the army for 2 years. I'm an old war veteran.
Well, is that a requirement in South Africa?
It was at the time, Nick. Yeah. You had to go either to join the army for 2 years, or you could join the police for 4 years. And if you didn't want to do any of that, they send you to prison for 4 years.
I think you probably that's a tough choice, but I think you made the right one.
Met some brilliant blokes. I'm still friends with them, with a lot of them. Then I went to uni only for 6 months. For some reason, I couldn't put my finger on it, but it's like, if I look back at it today, Nick, it's like if you try to channel me and tell me we're only going to do it this way, you don't have to think about anything else. This is the way. Then you're going to lose me straight away. I couldn't put my finger on it back then. I just didn't feel happy. And I left after 6 months. I went back to the farm to join my father. And then from then on, it was a self-educating path that I had to take, because I think I was on the farm about 6 months, and then we decided we want to go back. We didn't use the word biological or organic farming. We just, the way we farmed when I was a little kid was full organic. A boom spray didn't exist. We didn't even know what it was. And we wanted to go back farming more with nature. And we had a few issues on that new property, which was water erosion and wind erosion was huge issues, especially during that flooding of 81. It's 150 kilometers away where this new farm were. And even there was a massive amount of water that came down in a very short period. So it was all based on thunderstorms, and it was massive, huge erosion. And so we thought, if we can go back and farm more naturally, we can get away from wind and water erosion. And little did we realize that there was a lot more into it, a lot more benefits into it than just that. So,
and it wasn't that's not a marketing decision. So are you saying that?
No,
that
wasn't marketing, Nick. No, not at all. We didn't even thought about it. No one talked about it back then. It was just about the land, and we didn't even talk about Roundup or insecticides or fungicides, because it didn't exist. We didn't. There was no requirement for spraying anything. Even when we went to this grain farm, we had a boom spray, Nick, and it was somewhere in a shed behind other machinery. So it wasn't a thing we used every day. It was an occasional thing that we used. But what we did use was plows and a lot of cultivation. So that was, our soil was just totally over cultivated. So that's when the self-education started. A friend, his name is Sidi de Toy, he invited me to a Agrary Zimmer Day or week. It was like a course, and that changed my life. It changed my whole life. And the next year it was Neil Kinsey, and then it started. That was in the mid-90s, 95, I think it was. And that changed everything.
That course was an organic farming course, was it, or that lecture?
Yes, it was basically because Gary at that stage was he was a full-blown organic farmer, and it was about changing. And I think the biggest thing, Nick, was the mindset. That's our biggest restriction, is the mindset. You know, you grow up on a farm, you've seen what your granddad did, what your dad did, that's what you're gonna do. That was the mindset. I mean, you look at simple things like plowing. Why did we plow? We didn't even need Nick. I asked a friend one day, why are we plowing? And he said, oh, the thing is, every time you plow, your yield is going to be bigger. I said, how does it work? Well, what's happening in the soil? Oh, they had this stupid argument, but how it actually started initially, when you plowed your weeds in, which doesn't exist, but anyway, back then we talked about weeds. When anything coming up in summer, we plowed it in, and that obviously is sparking off your bacteria, requiring a fair bit of nitrogen. But if there's green stuff growing, that's the nitrogen source. So if you plowed once and you put a crop in after that, yes, there's a big spark. There's a huge response. But if you keep on plowing, you burn all of that away. You lose it. You lose your carbon. You lose your structure of the soil. And that's where the wind and water erosion came from, was overplowing, overworking.
So you're saying, sorry, Jannie, you're saying that when you plow, you get rid of your natural ability to pull in nitrogen from the atmosphere. So those weeds, that's what they're doing, and they're also giving the soil structure to combat against erosion.
Look, if we have growing plants in the paddock, obviously they take nitrogen out of the atmosphere and carbon. They build it into their own system. But once you plow that green stuff under, there's an explosion of microbes to process all of this, to make it available to the next green stuff. So it was a matter of, we destroyed what was there, and because of the plow action, we almost screened out the finer particles in the soil. So it just every time when we plowed, it went lower. The finer particles went lower, and the coarser stuff was left behind at the surface. So we believed that we didn't have, we only had topsoil. The belief was that under 200 millimeters, there's a rock. that was common. Like my dad said, why do you want to work anything deeper than 100 millimeters? Because under that's nothing. I said, but how can there be nothing? There must be something. So one day I asked two workers to give me a hand. I give them each a pick and a shovel, and I said, I dropped them off in different spots where my dad said, there's this rock here. Don't worry about it. There's this rock here. So I actually forgot about him. I gave him a little section of, say, 2 by 1 meter.
Dug you a swimming pool.
Yeah. It's back in the days before backhoes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they started digging, and in the afternoon, my dad asked me, "Where's this and this workers?" And I went, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'll go and get him."
They're doing some serious soil testing.
Nick, yeah, both of them, their heads didn't stick out. They went in.
And they resigned.
They didn't. They kept on working until I picked them up. But what was interesting, Nick, was what was going on 2 meters down. There were roots 2 meters down. I mean, the stuff we were growing was only wheat and barley and a bit of triticale back then. There wasn't even canola back then. And there was roots all the way down to the bottom of 2 meters. The one guy only managed 1.5 meters, but there were roots everywhere. And I showed my dad, and he was like, wow, how is this even possible? And the compaction layer, Nick, That was the beauty. That was about 100 to 150 millimeters deep, the compaction layer, and it was about 300 thick. And it was, the worker said that was the hardest bit, was to get through that compaction layer. But once they went through it, it just sunk in. It was just easy. It was an easy dig. There was no rocks. It was just gravel and sand mix.
Okay.
So that opened my eyes to this almost a lie that we are farming on a big rock with a little bit of topsoil over it. I hear it all the time, Nick. I hear it all the time out here in the wheat belt that we are farming only with 100 millimeters of soil. The rest is gone. No, it's not gone.
Well, it was great, Yanni, that your dad was amazed by it, because I imagine, because you sound like just a very inquisitive person, and and you see kids when they're young, they ask why, and you got to find a legitimate reason. The same thing happens in the wine industry. You can ask so many whys, and it just becomes, it really works it back to, oh, this because this is the way that we've always done it. So it's
Yes,
great that your dad was open-minded as well, and then of course yourself.
yes. I think, Nick, if we go back to Dad when I was a youngster, the farms were small. His farm was 290 hectares. And everything on that farm was full organic. So there was wine grapes, table grapes. That was the two blocks of wines that was on the farm. And the rest was just sitting there. They didn't use it. I think it was used for pasta. And then there was, every farm had a dairy. I think we had between 30 and 40 cows in milk all through the year. And the pasta, from what I remember, and the photos that Mum shows me, oats was grown in winter, and in summer they grow it. It looked like corn, but it wasn't corn. I suspect it's something like a triple S Sudan grass. It was it was a tall plant, and it looked like corn. But unfortunately, Dad's not here to tell me what it was. He passed last year. But there was green stuff all around through the year, winter and summer, and it was a winter rainfall area. But we had high mountains around us, which had snow in winter. So when that melted, ran down, and the underground, there was a lot of underground water. And we had a few dams on the farm, which I can remember, and that pushed a few more. So that was used for flood irrigation back then. So that was the first to introduce drip irrigation. He went to uni. He did a 6-year 2-degree. And I think one was ag science. Anyway, so that was the only guy in that area that actually went to uni and then went farming. So he was everything. He was the local vet. He was the local agronomist. Everyone asked him for everything. So it was amazing how they farmed when I was a young man. Like the cows were yarded every evening, and then that manure was the fertilizer for the farm. That's it. So I remember once a year that was emptied. There was no loaders back then. It was all manual with pitchforks on a trailer. And then in the vines, every second row, I remember that deep ripped, and then he had a special tool which almost looked like a moldboard plow, but just 2 of the discs. So he was opening up a groove, and into that groove went the prunings, lime, which was shoveled off the back of a trailer, and the manure, also shoveled off the back of a trailer. Yeah. That was it. And then the prisoners came out, and they shoveled they closed in that ditch, basically. So we used a lot of prisoners on the farm.
Oh, wow. I was going to say, one of the modern day challenges is the labor expense, but
yes, it was prisoners. They came out with guards and dogs and guns, which wasn't required. They were like me and you. They just did something wrong. Yeah. But they worked. They did the physical stuff on the farm, and Dad got a bill, and he paid the bill, and that was it. Okay. So it worked a treat, to be honest. And they got educated in farming. Dad was always willing to share, you know, they asked questions and Dad was sharing with them. So it was a great way of using them, plus having labor on the farm. You could say, I want 20 guys or 30 guys or 40 guys or whatever. And they came out with them. And so that was the fertilizer for the year. That's it. And it was every second row. And I can remember the rows in between always went into a green manure crop, which was oats, because it's got a very positive effect on the soil. It heals most of your root diseases. And then I remember, this is actually quite funny, Nick. That's why I said in the beginning, you might think that I'm 100 or 120 years old. So when there was a small section of the farm where Dad was cropping wheat. And the practice then was to scarify the soil once and then go over with a harrow to flatten it all. And then the seeding machinery was, it was people. They sowed out of a sowing bag, and 20 of them next to each other gave you an 80-meter strip. So it was quite effective. Again, the prisoners came up to out to do that. We did actually use a chemical fertilizer on the wheat, but I can't remember what it was. I was too young at that stage to really take notice of what it was. But I can remember how it burned my eyes when when they were spreading the chemical fertilizer. But then it was harrowed in, and that was it. And it was winter rainfall. It germinated, came up. There was no herbicides applied because the boom spray didn't exist. I remember twice where Dad had the prisoners out where they was hand weeding it, but that was about it. Next was harvest, and it was, I think they call it a sheaf machine. So it was buying it in little, what will you call it? Yeah. It was still a binding machine, so it wasn't a harvester like today. The heads were still on. It will lay flat on the ground, and then the workers will come in and they will put a few of these together with the heads up, and then it will sit in the paddock for probably a month until all the heads are dry. And then it gets stacked on a trailer, hauled off the paddock, and put in a big heap. Again with the heaps inside, and then they will wait for the co-op, because they had a harvester which worked with a long belt and a tractor just sitting there stationary, and that was close to the yards where the cattle were. And I remember this thing harvesting, and it was a big thing for us, and it was grading the wheat into 4 classes, and it was all bagged, and it went back to the co-op in bags. And I remember how the guys were stacking these bags. And, you know, back then it was these bags that weighed 70 kilograms. It was heavy ass. And so it was carried on their shoulders, and they was running up the stack, and they've done an awesome job of it. But yeah, so it sounds like I was living 100 years ago, but it's not. It's just the other day. It's just the other,
isn't it?
it's just the other
Prisoners
day.
and very labor intensive. What scale was this farm? And can you remember, because I think
Yes.
it's important to put it into context for people, the scale, but then also, you know, what was your living like? Were you guys middle class? Were you doing well? Or, you know, how did that all work?
There was money for everything, Nick. When my dad bought this farm, it was only 290 hectares. So he went to uni, he worked for a fertilizer company for a few years, and then he bought this farm. He had only, okay, it's rand, say it's just dollars. He had only $2,000 cash in his bank account. And the guy wanted $49,000 for the farm. And Dad went to the bank. They sent him to a ag bank. And they said, look, we can give you 47,000. That's it.
Oh, come on, guys.
He went back to the farmer and said, look, this is what they're willing to give me. And he's like, yep, no, that 47 will do. So Dad bought it for 47,000 with $2,000 cash in his bank account. And that's how we started. It was a running concern. There was machinery on the farm. There was 2 tractors, and that was it. That was enough. So that was enough for Dad to take off. I would say he was probably at that stage when he started, he was probably below average income. But by the time he sold the farm, which is only a few years later, I was born in 69. I think they bought the farm in 67, and he sold the farm in 75 for a bigger property. So
And
that property was 16,500 hectares.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very different. One
Well,
side of
sorry, Jannie, I suppose this is a good example then, because I imagined his farming practices changed, but did he continue to farm organically? And then how do you go from a 290 hectare farm to a 16,000 hectare farm and maintain that kind of soil health and therefore health in your whatever product you're putting out there for the consumer?
that farm.
That
That
seems
farm was,
the
yeah.
big challenge, and the big mental shift. Like how could I possibly farm that way on that scale?
Nick, that farm was very different than the first one, but a section of it was still irrigated. It was still apricots, peaches, citrus. That was the fruit part of it. There was, again, a big dairy. It was bigger than the first one. We had over 100 cows that we had milked all year round. A lot of lucerne. And it was all flood irrigated. So Dad changed that whole operation into, I say whole operation, that's not the 16,500 hectares. That was just a part of it. So that was probably 500 hectares irrigated. And the rest it was more like the outback. It's scrub and bush and hilly. So that we used that for pasture. We called it veld. So it was there's no way you could work it. It was rough. It was you couldn't. There's no way you could work it, other than just leave it as it is. There was a lot of paddocks, and you will leave stock out there. There was always good water everywhere. So it was very different than the first farm. So there was only a section of it which was arable. But that's still maintained. He still maintained. He still stayed organic. He still used his manure as fertilizer in all the orchards. Even in the lucerne, he used just manure. And so he farmed that for 5 or 6 years. And then we had the flooding of 1981, and 109 people lost their lives in that flooding. That's the Laingsburg flooding. And we were affected massively. All of that irrigation land was gone. The topsoil, there's about 30 foot of topsoil that was washed away. It was gone. It was just riverbed that stayed behind.
30 foot. Did you say 30 foot?
30 foot of topsoil was gone.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. It was after that flood that we saw how deep lucerne reached with their roots, because all of that 30 foot, all the way to the bottom, were lucerne roots. So it just shows you if you let lucerne do their thing, they will reach all the way to the bottom. They go really deep. So then we moved, Nick. Then Dad moved closer to town. We had another farm there where we were drying fruit with another farmer. So we would buy other farmers apricots and cut them open and dry them out and sold it as dried fruit. So we lived on that farm for basically half a year, and in that time my dad was looking around to find another property. So then we moved to the coast. It was still in the southwestern districts of South Africa, but this time it was close to the beach, about 11 kilometers from the ocean. And that's where I basically started getting involved in farming more. That's why I grew up in my teenage years, and that's where I went back to after uni, and that's where we were full scale chemical farming, because the scale was just big.
Okay.
It was 1,600 hectares of arable land, everything dry land. And then again, Nick, my dad went from paying for this farm more than double than what the price was for the time. And everyone said to my dad, we give you 5 years and you will be bankrupt. And 4 years later, that farm was paid off cash.
Wow.
Everything was paid for, machinery, farm, everything. And then Dad went on and he said, look, we have to be more diverse. We need other stuff. We can't just farm with grain and sheep. We need other stuff. So then he started buying farmland about 50 k's away from us, where it was in the mountain range, where we farmed with vegetables and with fruit. And then he bought another place. There was about 3 or 4 farms up that way. 5, I think it was altogether. One was had pine trees on it, so that was for timber.
Sorry, Jannie,
Yes.
just going back a little bit, when you say that you were farming, why did you go from farming organically to farming chemically? And is that the reason why you were able to pay that farm off so quickly? Were your yields huge? Were you like, what were you using, and why did that happen?
Look, when Dad moved to that farm, it was just the arable land was too much for Dad to manage it in an organic way, and there was no dairy on the farm. So the step over to that way of farming for him was probably easy, because he was working for a fertilizer company. So when Dad bought it, it was already farmed chemically. So it was just the way they did it. But again, Nick, a boom spray didn't exist. They didn't. It didn't exist. Yeah, I remember there was a little one in the back of the shed. Hardly ever used it. But the guy before us was farmed this operation chemically, but small amounts. I mean, 50 kilograms per hectare of a chemical fertilizer was considered a lot back then.
Right.
And I can't remember that we ever gave any top dressings. That was it. What we gave in the beginning, that's it. That's what we were finishing with.
Top
And
dressings meaning nitrogen hit or something, or
no nitrogen, just nitrogen in the beginning, and that was it, Nick. So it was mainly MAP, which we used, and 50 kilograms a hectare was enough to grow what we were growing back then. So wheat was only 1.3 tons a hectare. Barley went roughly 1.6 ton a hectare.
what
Canola.
would people be putting on their crops now? If you're putting 50 kilos then, what would a farm like that be doing now, just to put it into context?
It's hard to say, Nick, because the cultivars changed big time. The soil, if you look at the soil now, that same farm compared to then, you can't compare, because we moved that farm after farming it chemically for about 5 or 6 years. We moved back to not full scale organic, but biological, and we improved that farm over 20 years, like you can't believe it, Nick. We went from 1.3 ton up to 2.3 ton, 2.6 ton, 3.2 ton. And when I left, it was on 3.6 ton average for a week. My brother's still managing it for a new owner, and he's over 5 ton a hectare at the moment.
Okay.
And to put it in perspective, Nick, back then, if our long-term average rainfall for winter was 220 millimeters, that was our growing season rainfall for the week. For the year was 354, but you couldn't rely on it. And this year, my brother had only 80 millimeters.
Okay.
80 millimeters for the growing season, 135 for the year, up to the point when I was talking to him. and his barley went 4.1 ton a hectare.
Wow. And
On,
so,
on the 100-year average rainfall, this was the lowest ever.
and you still managed that yield.
Still managed that yield. Now, if you go back, Nick, when I was on the farm, that would be even when I was in school. So that would be 1985, 4 to 86. If we had anything under 180 millimeters, it was considered a total miss.
Okay.
A total miss. You will not take anything off the paddocks under 180 millimeters. And that soil have improved to a point now where it's giving back a lot. And I said to my brother the other day, we should learn from this. Because in good years, the barley is giving us 6 tons and 6.5 tons a hectare. And back in the days when I was young, it was only 1.6 ton. And in good years for them now, it's 6 ton. But in a 80 mil year, 4.2 ton. I mean, try to work that out.
Yeah.
And you look at the fertilizers they're applying in a good year versus what they could apply in this year, because he said to me not once they had a rain spell where it was double figures. So it was always a 3 or a 5 or 8. So it was really small amounts. And there was times where a whole month there was no rain.
So you can't put fertilizer on without lower than double figures. Is that what you're saying? Lower than 10 mils?
Exactly. So they were never allowed to apply a top dressing because there was never enough moisture. It just shows you the soil are capable of giving a lot back if you let it alone.
So what did you do to get to that point then for that soil? Because you mentioned before you were not farming organically, you were farming biologically. So what's the difference there, and what did you do to get that to be, it seems like such a resilient area of land. If you can crop between 4 and 6, there's a lot of security there for a farmer. But how did you get to that point?
Yeah, Nick, that's the bit that was probably the hardest, is to work out how to go back to organic. And so initially we thought it was in the machinery, that was the logical thing. Our machinery is not smart enough. We need fancier stuff, but that's not it. We tried it. We improved like little bits, but it didn't pay for the cost of the machinery. That improvement we had, it's not the gear. So it was a massive mind shift that was required for us to work out what's going to improve our land back to what it was before we stuffed it up. So when I was introduced to Gary Zimmer, and I spent that first week with this man, I realized that we are totally missing the plot. Totally. We are looking at the wrong stuff to improve the land. It's not the gear. It's not the color of the gear. It's how we manage the soil. And so they helped me to change my thinking process, to look different at the land. So within a paddock, you have different soil types, whether you want to know it or not. It doesn't matter how big the patch is. And if we're going to treat all those different soil types within a paddock the same way each year, well, how can you improve it? So at that stage, that's 1995. We were already started using satellite technology to identify different soil types within a paddock. We started that in 1994. And then what happened then was we sampled the soil, sent it off to a lab in America, the Perry Agricultural Laboratories, PAL, and Kinsey Ag did the recommendations, the Lime recommendations. because he is attached to that lab. It was all based on Professor William Albrecht's work, how this lab was functioning. Anyway, and what was interesting, Nick, the first year we used the Albrecht concept. The year before that, 2 of the paddocks which we sampled by the fertilizer company, the recommendations for those paddocks was we can't apply lime because the pH is already 8.6 in some spots. So we didn't do anything. So when we changed, Nick, we looked at the worst paddocks on the farm, the very worst, and we started with them. And I remember vividly how we sampled these paddocks. And I said to my dad, I want to include the 2 paddocks which we did last year with this fertilizer company. I want to include that because now that I kind of understand that we try to manage pH, but it's not about pH. It's about the minerals that contribute towards pH, which is 5 elements. It's calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and hydrogen. So all of them together equals pH. And the results came back and we were just blown away. Those 2 paddocks with the higher pHs were high because of a very high level of potassium, but there was a deficiency in calcium, magnesium. And so we corrected those paddocks. And I remember the first crop we put in was lupins and medics. So medics is a pasture legume.
Did you correct those? Did you correct those elements just by adding it in?
Different lime sources. So we used gypsum. In some places, gypsum and lime sand. In other spots, it was dolomite, and some spots with dolomite and lime sand, which is calcitic lime, and other spots with just calcitic lime. And a 4th product we used is soft rock phosphate. That was for the for phosphate, but there's a lot of other good stuff in soft rock as well, like calcium, potassium, sodium, copper, zinc, manganese. There's a lot of goodness in soft rock phosphate. So that was applied in spots. So the first year was lupins and medics. Interesting, Nick. Back then the way we did it was lupins, you need to get it out of the way, so you put it in first. Later, I learned from Gary Zimmer, that's not how it works. If you want to grow a legume, you put it in late. It forced the plant not to grow a lot of vegetation, but to put all its energy into pots and seeds.
Okay.
So we made the mistake, we put it in first, like we did every other year. It grew in places up to 1.5 meters, and then come harvest, and it went only 900 kilograms per hectare. So all the energy went into vegetative growth and not pots and seeds. But at least we had the medics in the paddock, we had good summer rain, and all that medic germinated, and there was pasture like you couldn't believe it all through the summer. It was green all year round. It was beautiful. And obviously Dad loved it because he was more a stockman than a cropman. So there was pasture for the sheep, and then we had ostriches as well all through that summer. It was just amazing. We couldn't graze it low enough. It just exploded. And the second year, those paddocks went into wheat. Now, to give you just a little bit of background regarding those paddocks, in the past, they struggled to average 1.5 tons, the best of them. So most of them were 1 ton or under. There were years in some... Sorry?
Per hectare?
Per hectare, yeah. So some years, it was that bad that we had to put stock in. Otherwise, there was nothing to yield. And that year, we put in wheat. That was the first time I used chicken manure as a starter fertilizer and not chemical fertilizers. So that was to introduce the microbes. And interesting, Nick, that grain germinated like I've never seen it before. I can't remember exactly what we had on the seed. There was a seed dressing, but I can't remember what it was. but it wasn't anything good, I think. I think it was still some sort of a fungicide that we put on the seed, which is
Okay.
very, very wrong, but that's what we had back then. But the crop came up and it just looked magnificent. And I was ready to put on a top dressing, but we looked at it and Dad said, well, I don't think it's required. And for my dad to say it was a big thing because he was always ready to put on something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because of the nitrogen, Nick, because we only sprayed that medics out 2 weeks before we put the crop in, and we sprayed a contact herbicide, which was a gramoxone. I think here it's called spray seed, which is a little bit different, but same action. So it just burns it down. It's not like Roundup. Anyway, and big was a surprise after a month of good winter rain. The medics came back again. So we were quite concerned about the competition because both of them got the wheat and the medics got a shallow root system, which means they will compete for moisture. And so we were worried at one stage because the season turned a little bit dry, but the crop didn't look stressed. And Dad said, look, let's see how we go. The crop looks fine. Don't worry about spraying it out. We're just going to leave it as is. Man, unbelievable. Our tine spacings were wide. It was 12 inches. So there's a lot of sunlight that penetrated. And so the medic just kept on going. And I remember the neighbor called me up one day and he said to me, so what were you doing next to me? How is it possible that your crop is looking so magnificent and mine just right next to you is just horrible? It's yellow, it's short, it's deficient in nitrogen. I already put 2 top dressings on it and it's still not looking the same as yours. And I said, look, it's called biological farming. And I started explaining the next thing, the phone went silent. And I thought, oh, that's weird. Back those days, mobile phone was like a big brick. And the reception was horrible. So I called the guy back and I said, oh, sorry, my phone dropped out. And he said, no, I put the phone down.
Oh.
So why did you do that? He said, oh, I don't believe in that nonsense.
Oh. The evidence is right there.
Yeah, just right there next to him. I mean, I said to him, but why did you call me then?
Yeah.
Anyway, we went to harvest, Nick. And I was in the chasing bin and my brother was in the harvester. And I remember that 2 paddocks right next to the neighbor. One went 3.2 ton and the other one went 3.6 ton. That was like, we couldn't believe it.
From 0.9, you said when you first started.
Under a ton.
So it sounds like
Nick, that's 2 years.
That's a 2-year turnaround.
That is a 2-year turnaround.
So it seems like though, Jannie, because like if we're going to get to the bottom of the issue, how people are going to transition, like that's the tough part because it sounds like you not even just defined by the fences of your paddocks, you guys got in some satellite imagery, it got quite technical, and you developed a relationship with different sections of your paddock throughout, and then you went around and gave the soil what it needed to bring it all back up to a certain level, and then you started farming more organically. So you went biological and then you went organic, I guess.
I wouldn't say I tried to go organic. It was just too complicated because of the certification.
Mm-hmm.
But we tried to win organic. We couldn't manage it to do it. But to finish my story,
Right.
back then I didn't have a refractometer to check my bricks. That crop that went 3.6 and 3.2 next to the neighbor, his went 200 kilograms per hectare.
Oh, wow.
And it was worse than feed grade, so he couldn't deliver it. So he called the co-op, he blamed it on the seed. And the guy from the co-op that came out was a good friend of mine. His name is Jannie as well. And he traveled around in the paddock in his youth, and he came up to the fence and he said to me, well, how's this possible? I can see your crop is in a very different league than his. And I'm like, well, we put it in on exactly the same day. mine is just, it was corrected according to the Albrecht concept, and I used chicken manure with no extra nitrogen. It was it. And the nitrogen must have come from the medics. So you could see he was puzzled, and then he started looking around, and I said to him, look at the neighbor's harvester. His tires was like, it was polished black. It was really shining. It was like clean. And he's like, And I remember he flicked one of the stubbles, and there was black stuff. It looked like molasses in the stubble. And we tasted it. It was sweet as. And then we realized he got frosted out.
Okay.
On the fence.
His paddock was frosted right next to yours.
On the fence, frosted out. And that's not how nature works. Nature don't stop on a fence line.
No.
So our bricks.
What's the difference there? What's the theory?
High bricks. I grow a high bricks crop because of how I growed it. So from then on, Nick, we was more aware of what is in biological farming, what's in it for us. Because in the past before that, we had at least 5 grades in wheat, a feed grade plus 4 other grades. And then we were paid a little bit more for above 12% protein. So there was like a premium. And since we changed to biological farming, there was only 2 grades. 96% went first grade and only 4% went second grade. Now, that in itself, Nick, that pays the bill. That's a huge difference in income.
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? I imagine your inputs would be lower as well.
You know, Nick, what was interesting, because we only started with a small portion of the farm, it was at that stage, we had 16 farms all up. And it was very easy to compare what I did new versus the old method. Because I wrote a computer program to do farm management and budgeting. So it was very easy for me to compare the 2 systems right next to each other. And for wheat at that stage, I produced wheat for 1/3 of the price. For 1/3 of the price versus the old system, which was chemical warfare. That's what it was, to be honest. It was based on a chemical fertilizer. It was based on 1 or 2 top dressings. It was based on insecticides applied, fungicides applied. The only thing that changed, Nick, was the chemistry of the soil. We identified different soil types within the paddock. Each one was treated according to the recommendations for that spots. So that was key. That's key of this thing, is to treat each soil type according to its chemistry.
Yeah, and it's quite labor intensive, but it's a serious investment by the sound of it.
Nick, it's not labor intensive. It was, I can't say it was a one-man show, but I was responsible for it. So I took the soil samples, which is not labor intensive. It's just you. It's just you. It's just time, but it doesn't take that long. The first few years was hard. It was very hard to take the soil sample because the soil was just so compacted, Nick. It was hard work to get a probe in the soil. A few years down the line, I would say 4 years after we started, it was a total different story. You put a probe into the soil and you don't even realize it's in. You don't even step on it. You just push your hand in. But genital, for example, I remember in the first few years, you tried to push that thing in and you reach 160 pounds within 100 mil. And after about 3 years, I could push that thing 1 meter deep, just in, gone. It's amazing. It's amazing what microbes can do. I mean, if we think of deep ripping, yes, sometimes we need to deep rip, but we don't need to rip the whole place up. If you have a deep slot every 2 meters or 4 or 5 meters, that's enough to open up the soil for the air to come in. That's enough. If you loosen the soil up too much, Nick, you lose that natural ability for the soil to bring moisture to the surface. I mean, that's what full moon and dark moon is about. If 2 weeks prior to full moon, the suction on the earth is strongest. So if you want to put a crop in, for example, with small seeds, that's when you want to do it. 2 week period to full moon until full moon. So that's the natural ability for soil to bring water to the surface. So if we use all of this natural abilities, then we can achieve a lot, Nick.
Okay.
So
yeah, it's incredible. A lot of paddocks will look like corrugated iron, but you're saying that that's just turning it into a bit of fluffy dirt on top, no structure, and then it can't, in a way, communicate to the depths of
exactly.
ability.
Exactly. If we rip it up too much, Nick, the soil water will come up to the bottom of where we worked, and that's it. So if you're going in, say, half a meter deep with a deep ripper with a tine spacing of 300 or 400 millimeters, you are creating a lot of issues for yourself, because the water will come to the bottom of that layer where the soil is fluffed up. And it will not reach the surface. So if you have a normal wet winter, you'll get away with it. If you have a dry winter, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You're in trouble because you will not be able to wet or get enough moisture in that topsoil. So, getting back to how quickly can we do this, Nick? It's quick.
Mm.
If you know what you do, it's quick. What we've done.
Sorry, when you say that, because that's the risky part for farmers who are perhaps open to change, that initial loss of income and the fear of that, because they're taking on all the risk. So what does that look like for people? And how, and also, you said that your neighbor hung up the phone, because what does it look like socially for people as well? Because I've heard some, terrible stories about, people think that they're going to get pathogens from somebody's paddock that's got a lot of weeds compared to their paddock that's completely sterile.
Yep.
So there's a social stigma there as well. So how does that all come into play?
There is definitely a stigma to it, Nick. You will be surprised. You lose your best friends over this.
Mm-hmm.
I had people who invited themselves for a barbie at my own place, and then they attacked me in my own house. Why do you want to be different than us? You think you're smarter than us? You think you are more clever than us? Or what's the story here? It's just weird how people responded to it. But I made a lot of really good friends by this move, different friends, people that thinks like we do or like I do.
There's big change for you though, and your family.
Massive. Nick, there's no reason for you to lose $1. There's no reason for you to lose $1 in changing. The biggest thing about change, Nick, is the mindset. Once you educate yourself and you meet new people via this organization, and you can go to their places and they can physically show you what they do and how they do it. There's no reason for a farmer today to panic over change. There's no reason. There's no reason why you should lose any money in changing.
Wow.
As long as you do follow this basic baseline, if I can call it that way, there's no reason why you should lose money. I mean, we never went back those paddocks where we changed the first year, we didn't lose a cent. We never lost a cent. Mm-hmm. There was just improvement from day one. Now, the guys who went out with stock farming, it's a little bit more challenging. Because ideally, that first year, I mean, we have to be realistic about it. You're going to apply different lime sources in your paddock. That kicks in over the first year. You have to apply the microbes to do the job for you. If you're only going to do a liming program without microbes, it takes a long time, and that's going to cost you. Okay. You're not going to get the return in the first year. You can forget about it. It's just too slow. You need the microbes to go with the chemicals or the chemistry. So if you have stock, so that's how we did it. The first year went into pasture, so which was oats and veg normally. That's a very good combination. It works all over the world. As a very good combination. So the oats are healing your root diseases. It's very aggressive on phosphorus, making it available for that crop, the companion crop, and crops to follow. Whereas you look at your medics or your clovers or heavy veg, it's very aggressive on calcium for itself, companion crops, and the crops to follow. So you're setting yourself up for what is coming. So that first year, if you don't have stock anymore, there's always the opportunity to bring in stock from outside. A guy who's running a feedlot down the road, ask him, can I have your 1,000 cows or cattle to come and graze my pasture? And obviously there's good money in that as well. I think it's $4.50 a head a week at this stage for cattle. So it's not for free. You get something for it. So make that your first year. And we played a little bit with this, Nick, because there were some paddocks which was really bad. And we had all sorts of issues in it. Like we had ryegrass toxicity in a portion of the farm where we actually had full-blown resistance against Roundup.
Wow.
And we're not quite sure how it happened because they said, I remember when we first noticed it, we were already into canola then. And I remember spraying the first herbicide in the canola for taking the grasses out. And some grasses died and others just, it looked like we gave them fertilizer. So I called in the guy that was helping me with the herbicides. And I said, look, I don't know, what are we going to do about it? Because there's a lot of grass survivors. And he got his agronomist in, and we made a decision, and we sprayed a second time with a different formulation. And again, there was heaps of grass that didn't even change in color. And then we sprayed a third product. And I said to them, again, there were survivors. And I said to them, look, it's all fine. I mean, we're doing a massive trial here on several hundred hectares, but I'm the one who have to pay the bill. I mean, to spray grasses out once is one thing, but 3 times in a row and there's still survivors. I said, who's going to pay the bill?
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done, we took some samples, soil, dug it out, put it in boxes, and we sent it off to Stellenbosch University, and they've done trials. And it was quite a shock, Nick, the result. They said to us, they watered it, they fertilized it, they kept it green, and then they started their trial. So they sprayed the equivalent of 12 liters to the hectare of Roundup. I think back then it was a 360 formulation, the Roundup. So they sprayed it to the equivalent of 12 liters per hectare in two boxes. Then they waited 2 weeks, watered it, kept going with it, and then they sprayed the first one again, 12 liters of Roundup. The second one, they sprayed the equivalent of 10 liters of Gramazine, which is a contact herbicide. The third box, they sprayed the first time with 10 liters of Gramazine, waited 2 weeks, and again sprayed the equivalent of 10 liters Gramazine. And the professor rang me up and he said to me, Mike, where's this coming from? I said, well, it's just a section of the farm. And he said, Mike, you're in so much trouble. I said, I don't know what happened, but there's a huge resistance. He said, the one where we sprayed the 2 doses of Gramazine, he said, it's supposed to burn everything away. He said, some of those grasses didn't even change in color. They survived 20 liters of Gramazine. Oh, my geez. I said to him, look, I can't afford to spray 10 liters in one go. I mean, we can't. 2 liters max. And Roundup 12 liters, I mean, that's unheard of. We were spraying a liter. And he's like, no, it's just for the trial. And you know, Nick, where they sprayed the double dose, so that's 24 liters of Gramazine, Roundup. There were heaps of grasses that didn't even change in color.
So what was it? What was the outcome?
So they told us that the grass has built up resistance against the herbicides.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Dad was like, wow, how did that happen so quickly? I mean, that section of the farm was in production just for a very short time since we got it, because it was always in pasture. Very rocky, very, very, very rocky. That's why Dad never really dropped it. It was just too hard on the machinery.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, how did that happen? We never sprayed it that much. I mean, it might have been sprayed once every 3 years, maybe. That's it. We always just left it for pasture. We never sprayed it. So we couldn't work out how did this happen, because what the professor was telling us was, you sprayed that much Roundup that it became resistant against the Roundup. That doesn't sound right. But then fast forward, Nick. So when we started the biological approach, we start with the worst third of the farm first. So we didn't even consider that, but we thought that we can't crop it. We're not even going to look at that. And I said to my dad, why don't we include this section of the farm in the second third?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my dad's like, oh, we're going to waste our money. It's just rock underneath. You know, that the whole story. And that's the paddock where I forgot the workers, where they dug in.
Okay.
That was that section of the farm. And I said to my dad, look, this is the profile of the soil. There's plenty here. We just need to get through that crust. Anyway, so it took a bit of fair effort to convince my dad, but we included that in the second third of the farm. Nick, it was amazing. I remember taking the samples. It was horrific.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 workers with me with picks. A soil probe I couldn't get it in. Couldn't get it in. Had to pick it. We destroyed a pick in one day just to take samples of that section of the farm. It was just horrific. It's like a concrete block.
Good effort.
Did smart sampling, so that's the satellite images. And I remember the results came back, and that was, wow, can't believe what we need to apply. We're going to waste our time and money on this section. Like, no. Let's calm down and see. We've seen what we've done with the first third. Maybe same can happen with this. Oh, so that was very skeptical. But anyway, we continued. We applied the lime, the soft rock, dolomite in spots, gypsum in other spots. And that first year, we've put in a crop, just oats. And oats came up, and we started grazing it straight away as soon as it was ready for grazing. And the cattle just loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. The second year, I remember the winter rain came in, and I sprayed it with Roundup, 3/4 of a liter.
Okay.
Blowed all the grasses out. Everything died.
Mm-hmm.
Put a crop in, and that time it was oats and medics.
Mm-hmm.
And it was magnificent. The cattle couldn't get enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I forgot to tell you something. When that guy said to us, you can't continue cropping this section of the farm. It's full blow resistance. It's the worst in South Africa, blah, 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 the whole thing. We just let it go into pasture, ripped it up, kind of, and just let it go into ryegrass. And that first year, the ryegrass was magnificent. It was a wet winter. The ryegrass was about a meter tall. And so happy. Put the cattle in. Nick, they won't eat it. They won't eat it. They break the fences to get into the paddock next to it where there were barley. It was a conventional crop at that stage though.
Yep.
But they will break the cocky fences and gates, and they will come into the barley. And me and Dad and our agronomists were sitting on the fence there one day, and we just couldn't work out, why doesn't the cattle want to be in that grass? To the point, Nick, where we had to remove them because they were losing condition.
Oh, wow.
Didn't want to eat it.
What was it?
we couldn't work it out because I was already into this movement of biological farming, and I did a fair bit of studying up to that point, but still I couldn't figure it out. What it was, Nick, if you don't have the correct balance of calcium, magnesium in the soil, then your grasses become not palatable. They're bitter. If you eat it, it's bitter. You can't eat it.
You tasted it yourself, did you?
It become a narrow leaf with a lot of wax on it. So it looks magnificent. It's a dark green color, but they don't want to eat it because it's bitter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you change the chemistry and you add the microbes, that same species become a broadleaf grass, a little bit lighter in color, but the stock love it.
Right.
So
So
this so-called resistance we had wasn't resistance. It was nature's way of protecting itself.
mm-hmm. And also, because what this is saying from what I know about glyphosate, to me, you were missing those nutrients in that ryegrass because glyphosate is a chelator. So it's binding to those minerals, and therefore the plants are not able to get those minerals, and therefore they'll taste bitter. But then also the Roundup is not working on those plants because without biological life, you can't Roundup can't work because it disrupts the shikimate pathway, which is in microbes. So you cannot kill plants in sterile soil using Roundup.
That's correct. That's correct.
And you did exactly what a lot of people do, and is just increase your rate of Roundup.
Exactly.
And therefore, with it being water soluble, there's going to be a huge amount in the soil and it's going to wash off to wherever that else it might go.
That's exactly what it was.
Okay. That's
Now,
crazy.
those paddocks, Nick, 4 years later, became such good yielders
Mhm.
that we changed it into continuous cropping. We pulled the stock out of it and just cropped it. It was just magnificent. What nature can give you back are just incredible. But the 2 years pasture was setting it up for just something outstanding. I talked to my brother the other day, and he said to me, that part of farm is still outstanding compared to the rest. It's just head and shoulders above everything else. So setting it up with a 2 year pasture phase was just incredible. It's just giving that foundation for that paddock that just lasts for years.
Wow. So really depleted, terrible, hard soil and that Roundup doesn't even work in, had a 2-year turnaround. But
Yep.
otherwise, if your soil is just needs a little balancing out, then you don't even need to miss a crop.
Yep.
So what about what's the way that most people are farming now, and what are the pressures on the farmer? Because I know that a farmer earns way less in the dollar than what they would have in the 90s, because you're still talking 90s here, aren't you?
Yes, 90s. Yep.
Yeah.
90s and early 2000s.
So how has that changed? Because farmers are feeling a lot of pressure because they're selling to a lot of big supermarkets who want quantity over quality. And for me, we're not really, if there's no nutrients in the soil, those plants are going to struggle, but then we're going to eat those plants and we're not going to be getting the micronutrients that we need. And we are struggling. And that's evident in the amount of chronic disease that has gone up. But farmers are under pressure because they're farming for quantity. So how do we figure this one out, Yanni? I feel like we need to gently provide examples and advice so that people have the courage to change before more people get sick.
Nick, I think we probably have to ask ourselves a serious question. What is food?
Mm,
We don't know what food is anymore. Real food. If you look at the human being and our DNA, for us, for our bodies to successfully accept a new food takes 10,000 years.
mm,
Now, in my lifetime, the amount of new foods that came in is insane. You look at canola, which is a man-made crop. It's a combination of rapeseed and mustard, so it's a man-made plant. So don't even worry about genetically modified. It's not a natural plant.
Wow.
We're not supposed to eat anything canola. I mean, canola was introduced to the human new food in 1975. In 1976, the first medical notes were made of melanoma skin cancer, and they knew it. They knew it beforehand that it was going to cause all sort of cancers. So melanoma skin cancer has nothing to do with the sun. It's vegetable oil and specific canola. Then we look at GMO
How do
corn.
you know that they knew it?
Oh, because they've done the trials and the studies, and they were hiding it from the public. But there's a act in America where if you as a citizen want to know the work they've done on canola, you can go to the company, the seed company, and you can go to court. The court can help you and force that company to release that data. You know that book of Julia Carey Gilliam? Is that the lady?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's an act in America where you can go to a company and say, look, I suspect there's something suspicious about the consumption of canola. I want to see your trial work. And they have to release it. And that's how they know it. I mean, you can go and read the book of Dr. Nasha Winters as a reference. She is mentioning it. And she's got references in her book where you can find these data. So it's out there. It's not even hidden.
I do know that a scientist in America made this request to Monsanto about glyphosate, and he was granted, they had 3 months to say no, but he was granted access to their research, and their own research was proving that it would enter into the tissue of
Yes,
bluegill sunfish. So
that's correct.
meaning that it will enter into the tissue of human beings, but that he wasn't able to take those papers or take photos or take notes.
No.
It was just his story, but the papers have surfaced since. So
Yep.
yes, they've known that was 1981 that
Wow.
happened. So they've known for a long time that it's entering into the human body.
Absolutely.
They didn't know
Absolutely.
how, but they know that it's in there.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting to Kerry about the corruption behind these things, but
Yes.
so tough for us because we're all, and as a farmer, we're just born into it,
Oh, absolutely,
you
Nick.
know,
I mean,
and
the first,
you just trust
oh,
people.
absolutely. I mean, the first time when I heard that um, what is not classified as food was just about everything that I was growing. Like, no grain was ever a food until 1776. I mean, yeah, okay,
Mm,
around the 49 years ago, but until that point, grain wasn't considered a food for animals or humans. So it's only
really?
after that.
That's hard
So,
to
so we,
understand that, isn't it?
yeah, so we look at wheat, barley, oats, triticale, oh, you name it, ryegrass, or rye. Um, so it's only been a food for a little bit more than 200 years. That's a long way from 10,000 years for our
Mm,
bodies to accept that as a food.
definitely.
Then you look at legumes, it's not supposed to be consumed. Cashews, peanuts, beans, peas,
Yeah.
lupin.
Well,
Uh,
through my health journey, I stripped everything back and just tried to get rid of all human concept. And agriculture and monoculture is a human concept. It only really kicked off 9,000 years ago with the invention of the plow.
yeah,
And then you can track throughout history, civilizations moving and growing around the world with our ability to slowly deplete soil. Civilizations have fallen because we've depleted soil so much. They
absolutely.
can't survive in that area. So then wars break out and you've got to go find new land. And it's all been about just tracing around the land that has the ability to produce.
Yes. But you know what, Nick? It's actually way easier than what most people think it is.
Yeah, it's this big mental barrier.
It's a mental barrier, and it's fear. So
Yep.
those who oppose this program are basing it on fear. So they will tell you, oh, you're going to lose your first 2 or 3 crops, you're going to lose it. You will have no income. No, that's not true. So it's based on fear. It's fear driven. So if you go to a big broadacre farm and you tell him, oh, if you want to go biological or organic, instead of yielding 4 ton, you're going to go down to 1 ton. Oh, no, that's not going to work. Yeah, you might get a few dollars extra for your product, but you're going to drop in yield. No, that's not true. We more than quadrupled our yields after we went to biological farming than before.
Yeah.
I mean, that farm was on 1.3 ton. When I left, it was on 3.6, and my brother's now close to 6 ton a hectare average. Same rainfall, same weather, nothing changed. Although they claim it changed, nothing changed. In fact, it's colder now than when I was starting to farm. So to change it's not that hard. It's very simple to change. And the oldest food of which our bodies are used to is red meat. It's lamb and beef, grass fed.
Yes.
That's the way to go. And
yeah.
we definitely have to put an effort in to bring stock back to our land. Monoculture, you're gonna hang yourself. You're gonna reach a point where it just becomes almost impossible to grow crops and still make something out of it. I mean, if I look at the stuff that disappeared out of our system once we went into biological farming, the first thing that disappeared was insecticides. No need. There's no need for insecticides. Once you start growing a crop with Brix reading above 12 Brix readings, there's no need for insecticides because the insects don't come. It's a very simple concept, Nick. And the hardest thing for me back then was the fungus. The fungus still came in. But that was because I didn't apply everything that was required. I applied the limes, I applied the soft rock, but I didn't apply the micronutrients because back then it was just too expensive. But looking back at it now, to address micronutrients, it's very easy to do it with a foliar. And that replaces the application in the soil, but it's not permanent. If you do it in the soil, it's permanent. If you do it as a foliar, you have to do it every year. You have to repeat it. But I managed to not only correct the soil using the Albrecht concept, I became aware of Carrie Reams, of his work, Arden Anderson. So I started making up my own foliar fertilizers, which is very time specific and task specific. So you can push a plant to do certain things quicker. So if you, for example, are farming with grapes like you do, you can push that crop to flower at least two weeks earlier. So you could get on the market 2 weeks earlier. If it's table grapes, there's a lot of money in it if you two weeks on the market quicker than your neighbor.
True.
And not only that, you can push your crop to grow a lot more. You can double your crop.
This is all organically. This is from.
Yep. It's biological. So what it is specific minerals responsible for specific tasks in the plant. So you're just manipulating the plant, giving a specific fertilizer as a foliar because it's very quickly in the system. It's like drip feeding into your veins. It's in the system straight away. Where if you put it on the soil through your irrigation, microbes first have to convert it. The plant have to ask for it, and then the microbe will hand it over to the plant, and the whole thing takes time. But if you give it as a foliar, it's now, it's right now.
It sounds.
You can't be silly. You can't say I want to be in the market a month earlier. The plant will not be ready.
Yep.
The plant must be ready, but
Timing is crucial.
You can rush it. You can rush it.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like your style of farming. There's a lot of giving, back to Mother Nature, I guess. as
Yes.
opposed to taking, which is incredible. And it's just, yeah, it's a tough one. You know, soil health is, I've always said soil health is so much like mental health. And it's taken us a long time to acknowledge that mental health is real. And
Yes.
and we need to do the same thing with soil health and understand the benefits. They're so hard to fathom because you can't see them. It requires
Mm,
us to use our imagination first and
mm.
foremost, but then, you know, the science is there. It's all there, backing all these things up. So yeah,
Nick,
it's
it's been
incredible what
there.
you're up to.
It's been there for a while. It's just been hidden.
Yeah.
If you look at Albrecht's work, I mean, he started in 1920, and he did a phenomenal job.
Mm,
And Charles Walters, who wrote the Albrecht papers, which is 8 books, he did a brilliant job.
mm,
And I mean, for anyone to start, Nick, for me personally, the first thing you need to do is you have to make that decision. I want to do this.
yeah.
There's nothing as powerful as that decision. Once you made that decision, nothing and no one will stop you.
Yeah.
What I
Yeah.
found over the years that the people who did try to stop me was banks.
Right.
Or more, no, it wasn't the banks. It was the insurance companies. They were the ones who fought me like you couldn't believe it.
Really.
Yeah, they didn't want me to change. They didn't want me
The
to
risk,
talk about
because
it
the risk
either.
is then theirs, I guess, and they see it as risky rather than what you've proven it to be.
Look, this specific insurance company who we used, they also sell fertilizers and fungicides, pesticides. They offered the whole package.
Hmm.
On one condition, you have to sell the grain to them. So then when I got the money off them, but then I bought other stuff, not from them. They didn't like that. And the fact that I didn't require any insecticides, they didn't like that either. And then at the end, where I didn't use fungicide because there was no requirement for it, they didn't like that either. They wanted to sell all the stuff to me. They wanted to sell extra nitrogen to me, whereas I was growing my own nitrogen. For example, in our canola, I planted canola standard with medics with it. Go
Okay.
down in the same row. So coming August, the canola drops its leaves, sunshine comes through, off goes the medics. Two different root patterns. The canola taproot, medics very shallow root system. Oh, phenomenal, Nick, phenomenal. I mean, I was growing 2.3 tons a hectare up from a 0.9 ton a hectare.
Yeah.
The canola
Cost of your
crop
seeds. The
in a
cost of,
biological system cost me one quarter versus the old system. So it was easy for me to compare because we didn't shift the whole thing in one go. It took us years to get everything over to the new system. So it was very easy for me to compare. Here's what I have done in the past. This is my cost. This is still my cost today. This is the new system, and this is my cost now. So it was very easy to compare the two to each other. There were years, Nick, where my fellow farmers and neighboring farmers were spraying up to 7 times for insects in their canola.
that's,
Not once was required for me to spray anything.
yeah.
And so I was growing my own nitrogen because I grow the companion crop. And we can do exactly the same with wheat and with barley and with oats and with. We can do the same with everything we grow. So
Right.
nature provides the nitrogen for me now not to give it.
Yes. So it does sound like from everything that you're saying, because it's very doable.
Oh, yes,
So the biggest challenge really is keeping an open mind.
absolutely.
It's just such a mental shift. We're so ingrained in this modern style of agriculture that we want, or even in vineyards, you know, when you drive into a vineyard up to a cellar door, you can see that they've worked very hard on the vines that are going to be closest to the customers coming in, so that the leaves are all in position, so that the the soil is sprayed underneath, and you've got completely dead dirt under those vines, but it looks very neat. The grass is mowed, and
Yep.
it's so far from natural. I know it's monoculture, but it's so far from natural that you could ever believe. But
Oh,
to the
absolutely.
consumer, it probably looks neat and tidy. So we need a mental shift from a consumer level. We need to normalize weeds and understand weeds. Weed is a human concept. It's just a plant in a place where you don't want it. But we
Absolutely.
need to educate ourselves as to the benefits of those and what they can do in all different kind of crops. And then go easy on your neighbor who's trying really hard. Because that I imagine is a big one for
Yeah.
farmers.
Yep. Yep. It's funny how very few neighbors will follow what you do. Although I followed what two of my neighbors did. So because we had a lot of land far apart, one farmer, he started the movement, Jackie Munn, and he started the minimum tillage movement, basically in the whole of South Africa. And a great man, great man. I learned so much from him. And he said to me one day, I went over to him, that's before mobile phones, and I was with him in the paddock, in the tractor, and I said to him, how do I thank you? For just everything he gives. He didn't keep anything to himself. He shares to the smallest detail, he will share with you.
Oh, nice.
And he's like, you know what, Jannie? I said, can I pay you something? He's like, you know what? It's not about the money.
Mm,
It's not about the money. It's about the privilege of sharing it. And he
mm,
said, you will notice, Jannie, once you start sharing with other people, they start sharing with you.
yeah.
He said, and that's how you build a community of people sharing stuff with each other, whether it's knowledge or practical stuff or just take my gear for a day and see how you go.
Yeah.
Anything, anything.
Well, what I've noticed about the regenerative agriculture movement is it just gives so much energy. People are excited to be farming, and we desperately need that. We need young people getting excited about growing things. But when you start to give life, which sounds like with all of the farming that you're doing, you're giving back so much, it just starts to give back to you. It's like a continuum of energy into the system, and it resonates. And then, yeah, like you said, you've lost friends, but you've gained
Yes.
friends who are excited about what you're doing. And you can tell, even now at 120 years old, how passionate you are about this stuff. So it's so encouraging to see. What I really worry about is that we as a society may need to hit a certain level of suffering before we realize that all this is happening from the ground up,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know? So, whether if there's any farmers out there listening who are farming conventionally, for me, and I'm not saying this in an aggressive way or anything, I don't want to start any fights or anything like that. But I think if they don't start now, then it's going to be their children who are going to have to start or their children. But
Yep.
I don't think it's going to be many more generations before we realize that life starts in the soil.
Yep.
So I don't know. Yeah, hopefully that will make people think a little bit about it. I know it's going to be tough, or like you say, it can be done. I know it's going to be mentally tough, like that challenge to take the plunge. You'd even get together with a group and go for it, support each other, something
Yep.
like that. But it's going to build energy. It's going to be bloody amazing. I can feel it, Yanni. It's just a beautiful thing.
Nick, it's amazing journey. You know what? Acres USA, I have to mention him. That's how I met Nick Hillman. Uh,
Okay,
and
he's got good energy.
yeah, yeah. So we met each other there, and the energy was just it was unbelievable. I
Yeah.
mean, there was 1,300 people on the last day for the last event. That's the most they've ever had there. And this year is the 50th anniversary of Acres USA conference. And I can highly recommend this organization. You go into their bookstore, it's phenomenal. The books which you can buy from their store, whether it's about soil health or microbiology or plant health or animal health or human health, the whole lot is covered. The knowledge I got from that organization are just phenomenal. The people I've met through the organization, if you go to the event, it's about contacts. It's about take someone's hand and look them in the eyes, and you can just feel that passion. You're on the same page or you're not. You feel it straight away. I can, within seconds, I can say, I like this person or I don't. Or I can relate to this person or I won't. Seconds. That's all it's required, seconds. And so once you have your mindset ready to go, nothing stops you. Nothing stops you. I mean, I would like to share this with you. A lady rang me last week and she said, look, me and my husband reached a point now where he's too sick. He hurt his back on the farm. He just can't be on the farm anymore. We don't have kids who want to take the farm on. What's the chances you can help us? And I'm like, hell, why not? They're only an hour from here. I've helped them with soil samples in the past, so they know a little bit of my story, and they've been on field days where, you know, I always have something to say. It's hard to silence me. So she talked to me in the past at field days and listened to me. So she said, look, we can do it a share farming operation, you running the business, and we can still be involved, but we can't physically do the job anymore. So so I'm very excited about that. That happened only over the weekend. She came to see me on Sunday.
And how are they farming at the moment? Are you going to have to change things up a lot?
Look, they was already on the biological path, but I think they didn't have the right people to help them. There's a lot of companies in the regen environment who misuse the word, just like they did with biological and organic farming.
Okay. So because they're a business, they want to sell something.
They gave the same product a new name, and off they go again. And it takes a while before people realize we've been fooled once again. Not that I don't want to say they were fooled, but I think they were, because they're not nearly at the place where they should be. I look at their crops a year or two ago, and the neighbors would have gone very close to 5 ton a hectare, and I highly doubt that they would have got a ton out of theirs. But it's a very good region. It's a fairly high rainfall area. There's still sheep on the farm, which will stay there. And so she had two conditions. One, it have to be full biological, and two, we have to use the farm as a model farm for other farmers to come and have a look.
That's great.
Yeah, love it. That's what we need.
What's your conditions?
Yes, Nick.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like, because a little while back, a guy contacted me. His name is John Ryan. He's from Osplau. So he's manufacturing seeding equipment in Western Australia for the last 35 years. So he's in the game for a while now. And he asked me to help him to introduce to all his clients, which is 4,000 farmers, to introduce to them biological farming. So I rang him up yesterday and I said to him, look, this is what we have. This is the opportunity coming up. We can use this farm as a model, because I remember from the past, Nick, to read a book is one thing. To take what you read and use it in practice is not easy. Because the majority of these books are coming from guys who are farming somewhere in America in the Northern Hemisphere. You're talking about very different conditions to where we are. They're the opposite. I mean, in winter, they sit under snow.
Yep.
I don't have to explain to you what Australia is like. It's everything but. In winter, it's mild. It's not really cold, and then in summer, it's hot. It's
But yeah,
really
it
hot.
creates a difference, which makes it nerve-wracking to copy someone's theories from a different part of the world. Yeah,
Exactly,
you want to be copying your successful neighbor.
exactly, exactly. And you know what? I mean, I managed to make that conversion
Mhm.
successfully because Gary said to me, "What we do in the north is exactly what you're going to do in the south, but you will have a different outcome." And I believed him because he explained to me how it works. But most people don't get that concept.
Mm.
So he changed his chemistry to make his soil drier and warmer. I used exactly the same concept to make my soil cooler and wetter.
Okay.
Same concept.
Right.
Everything exactly the same. The only difference, if they have a green manure crop, they plow it in. We
Mm.
don't.
Okay.
If you plow a green manure crop under, the microbes explode. They use a lot of nitrogen, and there's a lot of heat involved in this process, which make the soil warmer and
Mm.
drier.
Mhm.
Now, if we want to do a green manure crop, we use a roller crimper. We crimp the crop, it stays on the surface. So what do we create? We create a blanket.
Insulation.
Exactly. We make it cooler and wetter.
Mm.
It's as simple as that. That's the only difference. That's
Yeah.
the only major difference.
Yeah.
But the chemistry are exactly the same. How you
Mm.
treat the chemistry, how and what microbes you introduce are exactly the same. The
Mm.
only difference between me and you, Nick, is you are farming with grapes, so it's a tree crop. I'm farming with grasses. So
Yeah.
I need to introduce more bacteria-based fertilizers, which is chicken manure.
Yeah.
And you can do the same because you want to grow in the middle. You want to grow, say, oats and veg, whatever you want to grow, or like a clover which doesn't climb.
Yep.
So you will introduce something in the middle that will suit the grasses. But in the vines, you might use a compost which is fungi based,
Yeah.
which will benefit your vines.
Mhm.
Same for guys with orchards. They want to grow in the rows. They want to apply something that's fungi based, so a tree based compost, not a grass based compost, a tree based compost. You can have chicken manure in that as well to
Yep.
introduce a little bit of bacteria. But in the middle, you want to put some oats in maybe, or oats and a whole mixed bag of other stuff, like in 16 or 18 different species, which in most cases will be bacteria dominant. They like bacteria. So you will use a chicken manure product in the middle. And so there's little things, but once you meet someone with all the knowledge, it's easy. I mean, I don't have to tell you everything. I can just push you in a direction and off you go. And
Mm.
that's what I do find with people who are successful in biological farming. It's not like there's someone specific that holding their hand and
Yeah.
spoon feeding them the whole time. No, you just push them in a direction and off they go. They
Mm.
are so keen to learn that they just take off. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a couple here, Tom and Emma Mitchell. They only a 50-acre block, and half of it is pumpkins in summer,
Yep.
and the other half was mandarins, limes. Yeah, I think that was what they were growing. And I just pushed him in a direction, and man,
Mm.
the
So
result was phenomenal.
again, it sounds like a change of mindset. And as soon as they open up those gates of giving at life, rather than taking life, then it seems like they're on a whole new path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
what?
amazing. Can people reach out to you, Yanni, after this? Could you send me a few links of some of the things that you've mentioned, those books? And I've got a few documentaries that that people can watch that talks to this as well. But yeah, can people reach out um, if,
100%.
if they if they've got a if they want to try and change things up or just for a little bit of advice?
Yep, 100%. I'm more than willing to help whoever want help. If they want help, I'm here to help them.
Amazing. I've got to run. I'm going to the hospital.
Oh. Good luck, Nick.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's amazing to chat to you. I really appreciate it, and it gets me excited for the future and for farming. It's so good.
Cool, cool. It's a privilege that I've met you, Nick. I would like to actually meet you in person and touch your hand. Um,
Yeah, that'd be nice. Exchange some energy.
yeah, yes, 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 yes. No,
Thanks, Jannie.
I'm so glad Nick Hillman was mentioning you, and he was pretty adamant that I should meet you.
Yeah, he said
Now
the
I
same
now I can
thing.
see why.
Yeah, he's a legend, that bloke.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's a good kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, good
Awesome,
luck.
Yanni. I've just stopped the recording after stopping email notification.